welcome to the Star Companion podcast. My name is David Knack.
And I'm Zachary Kierstead.
And this is the podcast where we are trekking through the Star Trek timeline, episode by episode, and giving you our humble reviews of what's going on in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, and as we discussed before, we'll do a little house cleaning. You can check us out on Pippa, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, pretty much every major podcasting source as well. For those of you watching on video, it's on YouTube. And for those of you that don't know, it's on YouTube.
That's right.
And so today we're doing Star Trek Episode 2, Fight or Flight, Stardate 562151. And the quick little synopsis on this one that I wrote after watching it was: find abandoned ship, aliens come, distress beacon, harvesting aliens not pleased.
You really cut to the meat of it there.
So yeah, this is the episode where Archer and co are really really jonesing for a first contact. The only contact they've had at this point is Sluggo, Hoshi's slug that is obviously dying. And
appropriately named Sluggo.
I have a feeling in my mind that I hope to God that was improvised.
The name of the slug.
Yeah, they probably had some fucking ridiculous name and went to Sluggo. But anyway, they happen upon a ship. And they try to contact it. There's no contact. They beam down, and
the ship, by the way, is it's stranded in the middle of space, just kind of an empty space of space. And continue. Sorry. Actually, I'll continue now.
No, not at all.
Anyways, they beam onto the ship, and they find these bodies, and they're most of them are hanging upside down. Mm-hmm. And they have machines attached to them, and it's later revealed that they're sucking out a chemical compound of their blood called triglobulin. They're
damn near brain-sucking aliens.
Yeah. So the crew of the Enterprise leave hastily because they don't feel like it's a safe place to be, but after getting maybe like a day or two away, mm-hmm. maybe not even that, maybe 6 hours away, Archer has a change of heart, and he directs everybody to go back to the ship, and they transport onto the ship in order to reach out to the race of the people who are on the ship by sending a distress signal with their ship.
Yeah, and so the main subplot here is that Hoshi's afraid of the aliens, and she's afraid of transporting down. And actually, they don't beam down, do they? They haven't used the transporter yet, outside of sending supplies. That's right. They're specifically taking the shuttle mm-hmm. Down, and it seems that the whole subplot is that Hoshi is scared of the aliens and freaks out, and she has a real existential crisis about her role on the ship, and thinks that she doesn't want to she should just go back to teaching where it was safer. What's she even doing here? She's not supplying any she's not affording any extra cause to the crew.
Yeah, she feels out of place. She feels like she doesn't really have a place there, whereas like everybody else, either knows how to, pilot the ship, or there's a tactical guy.
Roles, yeah.
Yeah.
And since there's no first contact, she hasn't really been able to use her defined role as of yet.
Yeah. And what's interesting is she actually has one of the most important roles on the ship. Mm-hmm. Because she is. Yeah, she's not the inventor of the universal translator, but she's kind of like, one of the premier people to utilize it and develop it. So, it's a really interesting conflict that they introduce early into the series.
Yeah, and I really like how there's the allegory of how Hoshi's the Slug.
Yes.
You know,
definitely.
A little fish out of water who just wants to find her place.
Yeah. And going back to what you'd mentioned like a second ago, you said that, or maybe you didn't say it, I don't know. Anyways, relating more or expanding more on that her and Phlox are having a dialogue about the Slug, because she's concerned that the Slug is like dying on the ship. And she says she has an interesting quote.
Go ahead and pull it up. While you do that, I just want to say that I think fucking any scene that Phlox shows up in, he just brings out the best in it. He's always got some fun to say, some fun anecdote.
Yeah.
I forget I think it might be him that says there's something to be learned from every life form.
Yes.
Come on, Travis, we got to find Mr. Reed something to blow up.
Yeah.
That's a good old Archer, and that's Archer as he jumps down the ladder there.
Yeah. I found the quote. They're talking about, the Slug on the ship, and Hoshi says, I just don't think she's she's well fitted to be on this ship. And Phlox says, perhaps she would be somewhere where she can teach.
Yeah.
And then the music comes in, and it's kind of like Hoshi raises her eyebrow as if, the proverbial and metaphorical checkmate.
You got me, you dirty Denobulin.
Yeah.
Denobulin.
Anyways, to finish off the summary of what happens in the episode, they go back to the ship. They manage to send out a distress signal, but as they do it, another ship drops out of orbit, or drops out of warp, and it's the aliens who are trying to harvest the triglobulin from those aliens. Mm-hmm. And Phlox also mentions that the humans, actually human beings, produce triglobulin from, I think it was their some sort of gland. Anywho,
the brain gland to the adrenal.
Yeah, the adrenal gland.
Triglobulin.
Yeah. So the alien ship begins tractor beaming the Enterprise up to them, and then what would you describe what happens next, or how would you describe what happens next?
Well, so don't they get back, and then following, once they get back onto the ship after they're done harvesting and figuring out what's going on, and they do the distress beacon, the other aliens come, they begin to attack. Now Reed finally gets his chance to, blow something up and see if they set up the tactical correctly. Then in the middle of the battle, the alien race that matches the ones that are being harvested in the ship shows up, and they want to attack as well. And then Hoshi it becomes Hoshi's role to try and translate with them. She has a total identity crisis, and T'Pol goes, just speak to them directly, Hoshi, in her cold Vulcan manner. And then she manages to tell them they're the ones stealing your blood, and you need to help us fight them off.
And they blow them up.
And then they do.
They blow that ship up.
Find something, insert problem, fix problem, blow it up, save the day. It's a really straight up episode. A little fun fact is that it's the only show to feature the theme in score. So that's kind of going around in the background. I think especially when Hoshi is able to translate effectively.
Right.
So Rick Berman was saying that they were surprised that the first story of the regular episode. They were surprised that the story of the first regular episode of the series, outside of the intro episode, was to feature Hoshi Sato to such a large degree, and it just happened, and that's how they came up with it. And then
And what's interesting about that is I know later in the season she also gets an episode, or maybe not later in this particular season, but later in the show she gets another episode devoted entirely to her, about the warp incident where she uses the teleporter and she gets caught in like a parallel dimension or whatever.
Yeah, her atoms are like split and she's caught in sort of a different dimension where she sees everything that's happening, but she's not really there. But that it ends up being this like time causal loop, and so it's really happening during the time that she's being transported, which is just an excellent, use of Star Trek fucking storytelling.
Science, Science.
This is also the first appearance of the Axanar, whose homeworld of Axanar, which was mentioned in the original series, Whom Gods Destroy, in connection to the Axanar Peace Mission, which was also referenced in the episode Court Martial, which was the 20th episode of the first season. So I think they're trying to do a little homage to things that happened earlier on to try and tie in this canon earlier on. They went on to appear only once more in the form of a captive aboard an episode called Dead Stop.
And that's later in the series for Enterprise?
I believe so. And this is also the first Enterprise episode to prominently feature the EV suits, though a different variation of the gear was seen in the first episode. And another little piece of trivia. They're very,
by the way, those EV suits are very early 2000s.
Yo! The whole time I watched it, I was trying to think, what fucking movie is this from? And,
Mars, Red Planet, some of those.
Every one of those.
Yeah, and almost even like 2001: A Space Odyssey-ish a little bit.
Yeah. What's interesting about 2001 is, did you know 2001 has no spaceship sound?
Oh, really?
It's actually the only like space show to feature the fact that you can't hear the sound in space. Yeah,
that would make sense. And of course, the director of the movie, of course, his attention to detail. How could he miss that?
How could he? Anecdotally, I tried to switch my Alexa's name to Hal, and it didn't work.
Oh, damn.
I did, however, switch it to computer, and I thought I was being clever, computer. Tell me what I want. And but I watched too much Star Trek, and so every time I'd be watching it, Alexa would turn on because they reference the computer so goddamn often. It's a fucking nightmare. Anyway, this episode received a very negative response from certain viewers. The elite of Star Trek, I guess. I don't mean to call
the ones that hate Discovery.
Yeah, exactly. Which is definitely not us. And these are the same people who point out that Phlox, a biologist who should have never endorsed Hoshi's idea to leave the Slug on a random planet where it might become an invasive species to the environment. There's, at a certain point, there's got to be a level of suspension of disbelief,
Definitely, yeah.
There's got to be something here where, let's just, let the goddamn Slug live. In the same way, like, let's let Hoshi live.
Well, and, I mean, if you think about it a little bit more deeply, there really isn't, like a conflict of with the Star Trek universe, because this my impression of the first season of Enterprise is they're learning how to be in space. They're learning, they're making mistakes. Yeah. And so, maybe it is the future, and, Phlox being a biologist and all that stuff, maybe that is, technically correct, but also, they're all learning what it's like to be on a voyage in space.
Exactly.
And, they're allowed, in my opinion, they're allowed to make those type of mistakes.
I couldn't agree more. However, there is a moment where Archer's first contacting the abandoned, or not abandoned, but unmoving ship.
Right.
And, he goes, I'm, Halo. I'm Captain Archer of, the Enterprise. And Trip's
with his dad's smile.
Don't even get me started on the dad smile.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
And Trip's going, Earth. Tell him we're from Earth. And he goes, of Earth. Which, by the way, imagine we were talking to the Borg.
Yeah.
At which point he goes, right now we're transmitting you coordinates of where to find Earth.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
Oh, great. Now, what if they were fucking hostile, you dumb one,
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's actually something that I wrote down. It's like, why would you immediately just send an unknown alien like your coordinates to our star system?
It's create a little bit of a rapport,
Yeah, I will agree. That would probably be my point of maybe breaking with the Star Trek.
Sure.
But it's minor.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Oh no, that's all I had to say about that.
Again, there's this sense of human and Vulcan comparison being super present. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a really good episode in that it's the first episode where everyone starts to really feel they're trying to flesh out the roles.
Yeah.
And trying to think about, as you were saying earlier, this is their first time in space.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's a little trigger happy.
Yeah.
To get their roles defined and
exactly
be useful. Mm-hmm. Did you have a? Oh, this is what it is. When Phlox goes, have you smelled Ensign Socorro after she exercises? She gives off a fragrance not unlike the adrenal gland of a Nausicaan.
Yeah, I did hear that.
Just so much. He doesn't understand how much of a fish out of water he is.
Yeah.
And with all this xenophobia and racism towards the Vulcans, everyone's like, it's just Phlox, man.
Yeah, no, he's cool.
He's just a Denobulan. It's fine.
With his Denobulan mullet. Mm-hmm. If I had an interesting part, because I know that's what you're going to ask me, maybe not interesting part, but interesting development of a character is Phlox, because he, especially in this first season, he straddles the line between not only being a doctor but also being a psychologist.
Yes.
And that kind of ties in with this is the first voyages of the Enterprise, and they're not as advanced as they are in the Next Generation, or they're not as advanced as they are in Discovery, but Phlox has this almost holistic approach to how he takes care of people. And even in the first episode, when he's bringing on all those little cages full of bats and slugs and things, he's almost like an alchemist aboard the ship. And then he helps Hoshi work through her problems, and also as the series progresses, I know he embodies that role of not only being a doctor but being a psychologist as well.
Yeah, and I all of his observations as he's sitting down to eat with Trip, where he goes, "Do you see those two? They're preparing to mate." Yeah. Have you seen the way Ensign Hammond eats? He's just completely entranced with the way humans are. It's kind of cute. It's very adorable.
It is.
This is also the first time in canon that a captain speaks about a ship being a mission of exploration. And I really liked the homage to TOS with T'Pol, the Vulcan, on the viewer, and Hoshi with the earpiece. Mm-hmm. Because that's the tech that comes on later. Yeah. Which is, again, one of the biggest gripes with Discovery, in that, there's none of that shit. Mm-hmm. They're not really doing those little bits. So credit, everyone hates Enterprise on the surface, but credit to them for trying to keep to the story,
Yeah, and also keeping with the continuity, continuing from the first episode, where they keep making references, and there's, visual clues that, they're not as advanced as the Next Generation. Teleporters barely working. Mm-hmm. And they do. I think they did a good job at creating kind of an origin story for it all.
I agree. I definitely agree. I guess one of the last things I got to say is that the squeak found in Archer's ready room floor that annoys him in the beginning of the episode is repaired later on in the episode Dead Stop. So there's a little, Easter egg that little creak goes on for several fucking episodes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And because it's so early on in the voyages of humanity, they just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Oh shit, we left the WD-40 back on Earth.
No duct tape.
Yeah.
So yeah. Have you got anything else you wanna cover there?
Nope, I think that about does it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to The Star Companion, Episode 2, Star Trek Enterprise.
That's right.
Again, you can catch us on all major podcasting platforms. We got a Patreon, a YouTube, all The Star Companion. Oh, yeah, and
if you'd like to watch along with us, where we posted the timeline on our website, and you can follow along as we trek through the trek.
Just trek